In today's reading in Richard Toye's Scaffolding of Rhetoric, in that chapter, you're going to learn about rhetoric kind of generally speaking. You're also going to learn about the three branches of rhetoric. So that's judicial or forensic rhetoric, deliberative or legislative rhetoric, and epidactic or what I call ceremonial rhetoric. You can really kind of think about these as the three different kinds of occasions in which people generally try to persuade each other. And we'll call these people that try to persuade each other either orators or rhetors, R-H-E-T-O-R-S. But I wanted to take a minute to kind of explain why rhetoric matters and why we're studying it in this class. So rhetoric goes all the way back to ancient Greece. Aristotle described rhetoric as the ability in any given situation to find all the available means of persuasion. So you've got an audience, you got a situation, and you're trying to persuade the audience. It was, and it continues to be, a very valuable skill in a democracy. Rather than being ruled by an emperor or a king and having little or no opportunity to persuade, in a democracy we use words and arguments to persuade others. That system of persuasion, and I think you might be able to argue that our system of democracy is in a tough spot in the last few years. But rhetoric only ever works in a political system in which there are actually opportunities to persuade. I'll give you an example. One of my heroes, Marcus Tullius Cicero, the guy that I dress up as for Halloween every year. Cicero was a powerful Roman senator, and he used words incredibly effectively. He came from more humbler beginnings, and he rose through different governments, regional governments, and came into power purely based on his ability to persuade others. He was really good at arguing and using facts to back up his argument. He could just flat out persuade people with his words. He was so effective that when the Roman Republic fell, it was no longer a democracy. The leaders of the new Roman Empire wanted him dead because he had embarrassed them so much with his use of words. He tried to escape Rome, and he was on his way out of Rome to a port town to leave Italy altogether when Roman soldiers caught up with him. He stuck his head out of the litter, and the litter is like a chair with a cover on it that's on two large poles that you have your servants carry around on. He stuck his head out of the litter and said, "What you're about to do is improper, but I want you to do it properly." And he leaned his neck out even a little bit further, and the guard cut his head off. Took his head, cut out his tongue, cut off his hands, took all that to the Senate in Rome, and Caesar had it nailed above the Senate floor to remind the Senate where they stood. They served at the mercy of Caesar. Okay, enough of the history lesson. You can wake up now. The rhetorical analysis that you're going to work on is about one of three important speeches: Ida B. Wells' Lynch Laws in all its phases, Malcolm X's Ballot or the Bullet. Those two were actually speeches. Lynch Law in all its phases turned into a pamphlet, but she did deliver it as a speech in Boston. And finally, Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, which was not a speech, it was a letter that he literally wrote from the Birmingham jail. They're all very long texts, long speeches, and a long letter, but they are incredibly important. And they're important now. You know, the country that we're in, it's trying to get its heart and its head around issues of race and the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow. And regardless of where you stand on those issues, I think we can all kind of agree that we have some work to do on those issues. So we're going to learn and write about three speeches that are very important in understanding the Black experience in the United States. A rhetorical analysis, it's not an opinion piece. You won't be asked to agree or disagree with Wells, X, or King, but you will be asked to learn about the time in which they delivered their speech, the people that they were trying to persuade, their different audiences, and develop an argument about how effective you thought that speech was for those particular audiences. You'll also need to be able to use examples from the speech and be able to use your research about the time in which the speech was given in order to support your argument. We assign this kind of essay because it's important to try your best to separate yourselves from an argument and try to look at it as dispassionately as you can, to try to understand how people go about persuading their audiences. Doing so can make you a more effective writer. It can make you a more effective speaker. Doing so can also make you better at being able to filter bullshit arguments that are trying to either deceive you or play to an audience's fear or its ignorance or its misunderstandings or maybe even its hatred. So I hope that you're excited to work on this project. It's a tougher one. This is a tough assignment that I'm going to ask you to work on. But I'm asking you to write, and I'm also asking you to write about a topic that a lot of folks, particularly us white folks, we don't want to talk about, and that we would rather ignore. But I can guarantee you that I won't judge you for any misunderstandings or misconceptions that you might have about race. I mean, we are here to learn, really. I might correct you for using outdated language that you're going to find in some of the speeches. We don't refer to black folks as colored people anymore, and you're going to find that in the speeches. So I might correct you for using that outdated terminology that, again, you're going to find in some of the speeches that you read. You're not at fault, and I don't want you to feel guilty about any of those slip-ups. Again, we are here to learn. I will remind you, however, that while I'm all right with us figuring out some things and us making some slip-ups here and there, I won't tolerate much in the way of using racist arguments or making racist statements. There's really no place for that. I've spoken with most of you during conferences, and I think we're going to be absolutely fine here. But remember, a college is a place where we learn about different perspectives, and we learn about different people, and we try to accept folks regardless of their racial background. So it's an important assignment that we're embarking upon, and it's an important time in our country. I hope you're going to keep an open mind and an open heart to some of the arguments that you're going to come across when you read Ida B. Wells' speech or Malcolm X's speech or Martin Luther King's speech, or share things with colleagues or our peers in the class who might have different opinions than you. I hope that you'll reach out and speak openly and honestly about your frustrations and your opinions in your journals and in your discussion boards. And if you'd like to have a conversation with me about any of these topics, I'm here and I'm happy to talk to you. So if you stuck around this long into a video where I'm on a soapbox kind of bloviating a bit, email me and use Cicero in the subject line. Tell me how you're doing in that email, in the body of the email. Just kind of check in and let me know how you're doing. And if you send that in, and again, use Cicero in the subject line, Cicero, I'll give you a little bit of extra credit. Do that by the end of Monday, September the 28th, and again, you'll have a point of extra credit. That's it for now. I'm looking forward to working with you all, and I will talk to you soon.